Hey, welcome back in. Pull up a chair. Come on around our table here. We are back around the fantasy football. We are in the Redraft Roundtable, and I am once again joined by my co-host Grant. Grant, we are in the midst of draft season. Yeah, we got a special episode tonight, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yeah, I think what we're doing today is just we mentioned last week is doing a mock draft to kind of actually see what we're talking about. Right, we spent the last couple months going over teams and players, but when it comes down to it, this is what you're going to be doing with your league mates in hopefully a week or two, and that's going to kind of decide your team for the rest of the year. So yeah, it's kind of putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, and trying to talk through some of these picks and why we're picking them.
Yep. So we've got it queued up, and like you just said, we've been talking it. Now let's put our talk and all of our research analysis, do some practice rounds here, and get people ready for their actual drafts. And we're going to mock kind of different. I wouldn't recommend this going into your draft. I would say go in with the plan, but be ready to have that plan changed. So if you think I need to go with this certain strategy, but be ready to change that strategy based on how your league mates are drafting, you should be ready to do that. But for
Mm-hmm.
this mock and for the purpose of talking, Grant, I think we're going in with specific strategies. I'm going to be selecting at
Mm-hmm.
the 101. And again, this is a 10 team PPR draft, mock draft. We're doing it on Sleeper. So we'll go off of Sleeper's ADP here. I'm going to start my selection with a hero running back strategy. And I'm going to explain that, and then I'll let you talk to yours real quick. But for those that
Mm-hmm.
don't know, a hero running back is in the first to second rounds. I'm going to take one running back as kind of my hero or anchor running back. So some of you may know it as an anchor running back strategy. I'm going to select one running back, and then I'm going to go heavy into the other positions and select my second running back coming, round 7, 8, or beyond. So that's going to be the strategy I'm going to be implementing here at the 101. Um, Grant, at the 105, what have you got going on at the 105? What are you looking at?
Yeah, to kind of give all of our listeners a different perspective, right? While you're doing more hero, I'm doing a strategy called zero RB, which basically what I'm going to be doing because of the shift recently in the value of running backs in the NFL. You have less of these stud bell cow running backs that we've had the last 5, 10 years. And so my strategy involves going heavy, especially in a PPR league where you get 1 full point per reception, is really going hard on high quality running backs, tight ends, and trying to basically load up my roster where, in the sixth, seventh, eighth round, I'm picking up a starter, hopefully, for a team that it might not be like a star name, but that person has won the job, or you could see them potentially like flexing into a position where they can make some points.
Yeah, and we've definitely talked about kind of some of those names that we might be able to target with some of these strategies here. So it'll be interesting because I'll be looking at maybe filling out a second running back where you'll be trying to get your first. But by doing so,
Mhm.
where you sacrificed kind of that position, you are building up, whether it's your quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, you are gaining value at those positions
Mhm.
where other people are more diversifying. So
Mhm. Exactly.
all right. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hit start draft. And since I'm up
Mhm.
first, I'm going to start talking through um, my thoughts here. So if I'm going here, RB here at the start, and again, we are starting here. Um, the obvious choice would be Christian McCaffrey, right? He was unquestionably the running back one last year. He's on a very good offense. He catches the ball. He has a good workload in that offense. All things that we would say that's who I want to start with. And
Mhm.
I'm not going to say that's a bad start. Um, but I'm going to bring it up even at the 101, and I've got 30 seconds here. There's some concerns here where I'm thinking of Christian McCaffrey, meaning he's been injured with an Achilles, or not an Achilles, a
Mhm.
calf strain, and he's got offensive lineman also going out. So I kind of have a concern. So I see a lot of risk with taking the running back one overall. If drafters are saying, I
Yep.
would want to take that, I would not blame them. What I'm going to say is I'm going to go down. I'm going to select Bijan Robinson, saying I'm going to take my running back here where I want to,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to feel safe about it because I got to wait till the next round. So, Grant, I've taken up 10 seconds of your
Mm-hmm.
time, but I made my
No.
selection.
Yeah, you're good. No, that makes total sense. And you can see the rest of the board. The picks went quickly because the other players are bots, so that's
Yep.
why it's quickly my pick. And for me, going for the wide receiver heavy position, for me, I'm looking at a Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra, St. Brown is probably who I'm leaning towards. We've talked about Justin Jefferson with his quarterback situation, and I'm trying to go into as sure of a situation I can. Tyreek got guaranteed money. Tua got a contract this year, another year in the McDaniels offense. I mean, overall, I feel pretty good about it. Tyreek's he had like a wrist like splint or
Yeah.
like a something on his hand earlier, but
Mm-hmm.
overall, I feel pretty good about Tyreek as my first pick.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. I'm going to mute this here. But I think that's a great pick. That's a good call where you see Jefferson, Brees Hall, A.J. Brown, Amar St. Brown, Saquon Barkley fell the first round. Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison goes. We can talk about that here in just a sec, but Marvin Harrison goes.
Mm-hmm.
Gibbs, Taylor, and then Adams. Grant, you're back up here in the second round. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so based upon this, right? I mean, I'm still looking at a receiver that I really want to go to. Drake London is attractive because Kirk Cousins is going to be the quarterback in Atlanta, and I think his value is going to go up a little bit. I think Puka and he's got this. Oh my gosh, he had a
Oh, yeah, the
burst.
knee.
It was a burst
Yeah.
sack injury.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So for me though, I'm kind of looking at this and saying, okay, I definitely want another receiver. I don't love for my second pick to be ETN with this zero RB strategy. So
Right.
to me, I'm kind of torn between Drake London or Puka is kind of who I'm looking for. I know Cooper Kupp is obviously competing with Puka on a lot of targets, but I like
Yep.
Matt Stafford. So probably going with Puka here for my second pick.
And knowing
Let's see.
that, I'll resume here. Knowing that he's potentially gonna be back soon. Yeah, he's competing for that job again. I think that's a good call out. And also,
Mm.
I mean, the other option as a zero running back is like go for Travis Kelsey, but
Mm-hmm.
there's kind of risk in that. So I like the pick
Yep.
there.
Yeah, and for
Um,
me, like I was thinking about Travis Kelsey, but the thing is like I think just where again, this is one of those where you have to kind of do a draft to get familiar with it, but just the way that the value fell, I feel like I didn't want to get Travis Kelsey when I've got Laporta. I think is we talked about this earlier. You have the consistent, veteran tight end versus someone who has a good connection with a good quarterback with Jared Goff. And so for me, like I'm probably just in the background, right? I'm kind of eyeing Laporta probably on the turn. Is it going to fall to me? Maybe not, but I've got about 5 picks, and if people are scared off of tight ends, it might fall to me.
right. No, exactly. So, and to fill out kind of, I have the last pick here in the second round, but we have Kyron Williams went, Derrick Henry, and then Travis Kelsey. And again, this is what, August 20th, 21st. So if
Mm-hmm.
we are right in the heart of draft season. So ADPs are going to be shuffling around a bit. So, but back to me. Second pick, if I'm going with that anchor hero RB, I took again, like I said, Bijan Robinson in the first round. If I'm believing here, the Falcons offense with we've got Kirk Cousins. He looks like he's not having any setbacks. He looks like he's back. Plus, Michael Penix has been playing well in the preseason. In fact, the coach has said he's not playing the rest of the preseason. So
Mm-hmm.
he's been going well. So looking at the board here, I've got 2 picks in a row. So I think with this, since I've grabbed my running back, I really don't want to look at another running back. Travis Etienne here. Had I gone wide receiver heavy first, and had I gone with a CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill type pick first, I may take a Travis Etienne coming back. So if you're looking
Mm-hmm.
at anchor running back where you want to take a wide receiver first, I think that's possible to get a Lamb, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, if that's the way you want to choose it. So with this, I'm actually going to double up on teammates here. I'm going to take Drake London with Bijan Robinson. I know maybe this is more best ball where you're stacking players, but even in a redraft league, we have Kirk Cousins, who is better than any of the quarterbacks that Drake London has played with.
Mm,
He is the wide receiver one in an offense that we think should get very much better. He has Mike Evans quality type play. So with that, I feel good taking this, already having Bijan Robinson as my wide receiver one. Now, coming back around, I've got, as I look at this, I've got two potential options, I think, for this if I'm just looking at the sleeper ADP, right? So, again, approaching this with a hero RB build, I'm not looking at the running backs. So Travis Etienne, Devon Achane, they're out of the question here. So I can take quarterback first, and I typically never want to draft quarterback first. I want to, and again, this is a 3 wide receiver build team. So I really want to get another wide receiver here. So while he had struggles, I feel better about Chris Olave this year than I did about what his play was last year. There are a lot of things pointing with the Saints that say, hey, this could be a lot better. They have a new offensive coordinator.
mm,
Yes, there's still a possibility he kind of falls down. But since I've already drafted Drake London, I kind of like this option of Chris Olave as my second wide receiver, saying I'm going to grab him and go from there. So we see
mm-hmm,
ETN, then Brandon Ayuk, and Sam Laporta go. So
mm-hmm.
you were looking at Sam
Yep.
Laporta. He's now gone. So what are your thoughts here?
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, for me, obviously, one of Laporta that would have been ideal for me. Not looking like it's not going to work out, which is obviously he's gone. But for me, because I'm still trying to really front load with receivers, tight ends, and quarterback, I'm looking at it and like Josh Allen, I don't love that pick in the third round. But at the same time, he has finished, I think the last 4 years, he's finished number one, 3 of those years, and number two the other year. So, like,
Yep.
consistent. Also, I think overall, Buffalo, they had some personnel changes. I think they actually got a little worse, to be honest, on defense. I know like Klein, the linebacker and stuff, had like a bicep tear, and there's been some injuries they've had. So to me, I think Josh Allen's actually going to be throwing the ball more. Also a really good running threat. So to me,
Yep.
I as much as I'm not really a fan of going that, I think just based on volume, I'm probably going Josh Allen here. It's not my favorite pick in the world, but just how the picks felt to me, that's probably the best value for my team.
Nope. I get that. All right. That's a really good build with your strategy there. So we
Mm-hmm.
see Nico Collins, and again, while these are all bots, you see a team that has gone here 4 wide
Mm-hmm.
receivers in the first 4 rounds, 3 running backs, and a quarterback. You have 2 and 2, 3 and 1, and then 2 with quarterback and a running back, 2 wide receivers. So this kind of gives that, you're not sure what's going to happen in drafts. I think this is where understanding this is going to be all different every time you have a bot run this with you.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see something different here. So, Grant, coming up here, it's the 4th round. You've seen we've had 3 wide receivers, another running back, and a quarterback go. What are your thoughts here
Mm-hmm.
for your zero RB build?
Yeah, so to me, I'm probably waiting one more round for running back, just because I think I don't love where the value is, and look at the top picks based upon we have left, right? Jalen Hurts, we got a quarterback. Waddle is the second best receiver on a team I already have the main receiver on. Same with Cooper
Yep.
Cup.
Yep.
So to me, those options don't really apply to me. So I'm honestly looking for like a Michael Pittman or like a DK Metcalf is kind of who I'm thinking of, just based upon value. I think if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy, I love Michael Pittman at this spot, and I think it's
Yep.
probably the best bet for my team.
Yeah, and especially as your quarterback 3, the Jalen Hurts pick that goes right after you, that would be the reason you had said you don't love taking quarterback as early with Josh Allen. So that's the reason
Yeah.
of, you could have taken a Nico Collins, Diggs,
Yes.
Mike Evans
Mm-hmm.
versus that. But Again, in the middle of the draft, it's kind of hard, I think. And you can tell me your opinion on this, but I think it's a little more difficult where if you're at, the 101 to the 103 or the back three, you kind of get a feel for the teams before you or after you, how they're drafting. In the middle, you kind of have
Mm-hmm.
to let players fall where they will, where you're kind of up to
Yeah.
what is the draft going to do, and you're taking a guess at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And like what you're looking at too is, in your mind, while players fall to you and you're kind of doing your research, you're also understanding in front of you and behind you, like, all right, who has a running back, who has receivers. Like right now, Team Six, they have four receivers, so they went really hard on a zero RB strategy. And so
Yep.
for them, like I'm expecting on their strategy, they're probably going to draft running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks here pretty soon. And just because the way that this league is set up, you have four receivers you could play as a starting role. So you'd want to start filling those other roles and not really stocking your bench with receivers at the moment. So you kind of get a feel for who's drafting behind and in front of you. And like you mentioned, just being aware of that and understanding, like being aware of what's going on and what's going to fall to you in the next pick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as I look at the board, and again, this is a start three with one flex team. We're not doing defenses or kickers. We've kind of graduated, especially on a mock draft. We don't need a draft defenses or kickers. So
Mm-hmm.
um went heavy. Yeah, a lot of ASC South teams here, but looking at the board, team two still has yet to take a quarterback. They've already taken a tight end, so I don't think they're going to take one here. Team three has yet to take a tight end, so they could. I'm expecting team four to take either running back or wide receiver. So I'm going to push my second running back still a couple more rounds. I'm going to wait and see what happens, but I'm going to take Cooper Kupp here in the fourth, at the end of the fourth. I think it's good value with what he's going to do,
Mm-hmm.
especially his teammate where you took Nakua in the second. I think that's also fine value. But if the Rams are actually good this year and Kupp is healthy, I think that's great value in the fourth. Whereas last year you had to draft him
Mm-hmm.
first, second round. And
Mm-hmm.
then again, like I said, I'm gonna push. I'm gonna push my running back once more. But instead, I've got three very solid wide receivers, where two are wide receiver ones on their right on their own teams. One is a wide receiver two, maybe a wide receiver 1A, 1B with Puka Nacua. I'm gonna take my tight end here, knowing when it comes back, my options are gonna be pretty limited. And between Mark Andrews, Trey McBride, I like both, but I'm gonna take the upside with Trey McBride here, where he is fighting for targets with Marvin Harrison Jr. He is a second year tight end this year. It is an offense he's more familiar with. So I think there's a breakout, especially at the fifth round, where we saw Kelsey go at the end of the second, Laporta go in the third. I get
Mm-hmm.
the third tight end in the fifth. I think that's pretty good value, especially for McBride there in the fifth.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree with you. That was a good pickup, and I like your Cut McBride combo there. I mean, you had really good value plays, I think, and we can discuss after this draft how I feel. But I'm not
Yeah.
as solid on my picks just because of just the way that the picks fell. I don't necessarily love all of them, but it's one of those things you got to live with them sometimes.
Well, and I mean, we see Neighbors go right after, which Neighbors, Metcalf, Smith. Had I went with a fourth wide receiver, those are the obvious choices. But I feel like I'll get some value later with some other wide receivers. So taking a tight end, knowing I won't get that high of a value back, felt right
Mm-hmm.
there in that moment. So again, it's hard in the middle where you're just seeing what falls to you after teams draft. So what are your thoughts
Yep.
here in your
Yep.
zero running back build?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been kind of looking at. I've got three receivers, are arguably all wide receiver ones, and probably the QB one of the draft. So for me, I was looking for Laporta as kind of the play. I think him and Kelsey are kind of in a tier above a McBride or a Mark Andrews, but I'm going for Mark Andrews probably just because, other than his injury last year, where he still had top 15 numbers for a tight end, even when he was injured. He only played 10 games. He was tight end 15, right? So to
Yeah.
me, I think he's going to have that top five finish that I'm expecting. And honestly, in my personal opinion, I think there's a big drop off. Like you've got Dalton Kincaid a little later. and then like Kyle Pitts and George Kittle and stuff. But I think after Dalton Kincaid, there's a significant drop off of just like mouths to feed with George Kittle and Kyle
Yep.
Pitts as well. So to me, I like that pick. Probably this year, I'm going to try to get like a top 3 or 4 tight end earlier if I can,
Yeah.
just because it's you start playing the game later in the season and it's tough. So I'm picking Mark Andrews here.
It is tough. I think, you see Kittle go, and then a bunch of running backs go off, and then also coming back, a couple more tight ends. So I
Mm-hmm.
think great as you look at the board, it's a great value where if you look down, we see one wide receiver and a quarterback go, where
Mm-hmm.
you have then 3 other tight ends go and all running backs. So I think this is the year where we don't have to spend a first or second round. I know one team did, but you don't necessarily have to spend a first or second round on a top tier tight end. And the
Mm-hmm.
differentiating, factor between the top tight end and maybe the tight end 5, I don't think it's as big. That gap is not as big as it
Mm-hmm.
was in years past. So
Yeah.
waiting again in the 5th and grabbing a tight end that could finish as a tight end 1 is still good value here. So
Mm-hmm.
um, so to kind of recap the bots picks here, we see Kittle go after Andrews, James Cook, Alvin Kamara, Rashad White, Joe Mixon, and then back in the 6th, Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid, Kenneth Walker, T. Higgins, and Anthony Richardson go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
Grant, are you pushing running back one more round with the receivers here, or are you looking at your
Mm-hmm.
first running back here off the board?
Probably my first running back, and the reason why is
Hmm.
the way things have fallen to me. I see Aaron Jones here.
Oh,
And what I love about Aaron Jones is he is going to be picking up, I think, a lot of the weight in the slack after McCarthy has been injured with the Vikings.
right.
So to me, that's going to speak to some volume. And also, Matt LaFleur used him differently in Green Bay than I think Minnesota will use him. So to me, I like this pick because I'm getting an RB1 on a team where I think like there's offensive snaps have to go somewhere, and I don't know how I feel about the quarterback situation. Justin Jefferson's going to get targets, obviously, but I could see Aaron Jones getting a decent part of the offense while they get things figured out. So I'm picking Aaron Jones here.
Okay. I think had you not picked him, it was wait one more round and then you're getting them there. So, all right,
Yeah.
coming back here, we see 3 wide receivers go next: Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, and George Pickens. I feel like there's kind of some wide receivers getting pushed down a little bit, where Zay Flowers has some pretty good. If he's there in the 6, that's pretty good value in the 6. I feel like. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, as I look at this with my hero running back, plus also being a turn pick. So being the first pick overall, having 2 picks, I've got to kind of look at the board as, I had to kind of pick 2 rounds worth of players in 2 picks. So I'm not going to go strictly by ADP. What I am going to look at, though, is I'm going to push my hero running back one more round here. I'm going to take my quarterback. I'm going to take Joe Burrow. So we've not seen a setback from him from his injury last year. If the Bengals are actually back, Joe Burrow is going to have pretty good value here. Now, he does not have the rushing upside as some of the other quarterbacks like Allen, Hurts, Richardson, Jackson, that all went before him. I could probably push this a couple more rounds. There's still some values here with quarterback a few more rounds. But I still gotta have a solid quarterback on a team that looks to score a lot of points. So for my hero RB, I think I'm still gonna push running back one more round. I want to take a chance here. And with that, and the reason I'm saying that is I look here and I see Amari Cooper here, and I see Christian Kirk sitting right here, and Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 1 on his team on a pretty decent offense here, right? And let me pause this real quick. Whew. So I get a wide receiver 1 with Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 1 with Amari Cooper, both decent offenses, right? Where they could score a pretty amount of points. And I have the slot wide receiver for a Jacksonville team where if we think they're going to do better this year, he has that role locked up. He has the chemistry with Trevor Lawrence. So I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to pick one of those three and go with that as there we go. Got Amari Cooper. And I'm going to push my running back position just slightly a little bit more so that I can uh I can add that value wide receiver. So I picked up my fourth. All right. Grant, you're back up here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right now, and this is probably maybe speaks to just how my OCD works. But I think for a strategy for me is I try to at this point like I have a receiver. I'm sorry, three receivers. I got a tight end, running back, and a quarterback. So for me, like if I get one more running back at this point, it kind of fills all my starters, and then at that point, like I have a flex role. So to me, what I'm kind of looking for is, I'm kind of looking for some different, I'm looking for a running back I think has good value, right? So to
Sure.
me, Dave Montgomery, of course, is in a competition with Mr. Gibbs, who
Mm-hmm.
has potential injury and should be back for week one, right? Is the theory, but oh shoot, it just kind of picked for me. Oh well,
There
it's
you go.
fine.
I'm going
Okay,
to. That's fine. Keep
it's
talking
fine.
though. Keep
I
talking. Keep
was
talking.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you're good. So I was probably going to go with either David. I was going to go Dave Montgomery or Najee Harris is who I was looking for, just because I think I kind of want to fill out that role.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dave Montgomery's not the RB one for the team. He had put up good numbers. Najee, I think, could have some value, especially with Jalen Warren being out. So I think with the new look Pittsburgh offense with Wilson, I think he could get a lot of play. So I'm probably going down. I'm skipping over Mondre Stevenson just because I think the Patriots offense has been tough, and he overall he played in 12 games last year and finished I think he was like 35th of running backs. So to me, I probably would do Montgomery or Najee. Probably lean Najee just because of the recent Jalen Warren injury news.
Okay. Let me set that here for you.
Cool.
All right. All right. Then we see Ramondre Stevenson, Christian Kirk, Dak Prescott, Rashi Rice. David Montgomery goes at the late. And then we see Terry McLaurin, Kyler Murray, Evan Ingram, Jake Ferguson, and Tony Pollard. So, Grant, you're back up here.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yeah,
filling out
yeah.
flex
So for
spot this
me,
time.
yeah, I'm filling out flex spot. So to me, I'm kind of looking for value, right? And I think that what I'm kind of looking for is, I'm probably leaning Jaden Reed just because of the recent success of Jordan Love and what he did last year. So that's what I'm kind of leaning towards. Again, Odunze, I think it's going to be a great pick from Washington. I just, right now, the Bears offense, like, they're in terms of ADP very similar. So to me, like taking the chance of like a rookie versus someone who's had a year of experience, who has chemistry with the quarterback, and who finished top 30 as a rookie, I think is a good sign. So that's who I'm going to pick for my next pick is Jaden Reed.
All right. So we see the bots take Nick Chubb, then Roma Dunze, and Jordan Love. So by me going Joe Burrow, I missed out on selecting potentially Kyler Murray. Now again, I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
potentially 2 rounds worth of players. I'm not sure what's going to be there. I still like the upside Joe Burrow. I also like the upside Kyler Murray. I think he's going a little bit late in drafts, but now I think I'm at the point of I really want to fill out my wide receiver or my second running back. And in looking here at the board, I think there are a couple options, and I gotta scroll down a little bit where I may be taking some players that have they may go later, but I'm gonna select for my second running back Javonte Williams, and I'm gonna take him ahead of guys like Raheem Mostert, Zamir White. Part of that is I think the Denver running back room is a little underrated this year. I could see them being utilized as pass catchers. That is something typical. It's out of a Sean Payton offense. and they led the league last year in that. Sean Payton did that when he was with the Saints. But I think I'm going to double up here on my running backs and take kind of another bet that some of that may see a lot of volume with the Raiders here. Zamir White
Mm.
is going to see some volume again. So, again, it's my third running back where I have a solid with Bijan. And I have a couple guys where one or the other where I could play them on a week by week if I needed to. So, we see three more wide receivers go, Grant. We are in the ninth round here out of 15 rounds. What are your thoughts here? Kind of played with the zero RB. You picked up two running backs. You got your wide receiver. What are you thinking for bench spots here now?
Yeah, so to me, I'm kind of looking for best value, and I think I have a good tight end, so I'm probably not going for an Njoku or a Brock Bowers. To me, at this point, like, and this is how kind of my thought is, like, I'm starting to go with dart throws. Not dart throws in terms of, like, I have no clue. It's more educated dart throws. So to me, I'm looking for offenses where maybe they're underrated, where maybe
Okay.
there's potential for upside. And for me, I think that's going to be Lad McConkey, just because everyone's down the Chargers this year.
Mm,
Justin Herbert, I think, is a good quarterback who I think just overall doesn't. He's obviously he's not off the board yet. But I think Lad McConkey coming in and basically winning that wide receiver one spot on the depth chart is telling. And I think at this point you're keeping him on the bench to hopefully give people some, give like setting yourself up for like seeing how the season progresses, and he can slide
right.
into that flex spot. So I'm probably picking McConkey.
All right. Well, and there's a bunch of upside there with taking the guy like McConkey, where you have upside with McConkey, you have floor with Deontay Johnson. Um,
Mm,
we see some of those where if you're building out uh, you're building right out your bench right now, so you want to see what kind of upside pieces may I have here. So Addison goes after McConkey. Hollywood Brown, who again is dealing with injury, so he goes in the ninth, where he's probably missing at least the first week, if not the first, second, maybe third week of the season. Keon
hmm
Coleman, rookie Keon Coleman, again, taking over the wide receiver one duties in Buffalo. So again, kind of that wild card. Deontay Johnson, new wide receiver one for Carolina, I think is a very good floor play. Let me see. Raheem Mostert and Zach Moss go off the board. Again, I think ninth round for last year's running back, too. That's a pretty good value for potential
hmm
upside. I think this is baking in his risk of injury because of his age. So, ninth round with you might get half a season. That's not killing your draft there. We see
Yep.
Hopkins, Jalen Warren, Jonathan Brooks goes in the 10th, where if you're drafting Jonathan Brooks, which again it's a bot, but this team is one that went very running back heavy. Brees Hall, Jonathan Taylor, Isaiah Pacheco. It's literally the fifth running back for this team where they don't need him right away. So
hmm
I get the build. I don't know that I would do that necessarily. And then Brian Thomas goes with team six. So
hmm
looking at more bench spots, what are your thoughts on how you want to fill it? So you've taken two running backs, you've got five wide receivers. Are you looking at adding a few more wide receivers? You wanting to put some more running back depth on? What are your thoughts here?
Mm. Yeah, I think for me, I'm looking for one more RB1 spot on a maybe not so mediocre team. And what's caught my eye is Devin Singletary.
Ah,
He right now I think it's some good value there, and I think overall with the Giants, like probably not going to do crazy things this year. But what I like is my three running backs are going to be RB1s to start the season. Now Najee Harris might move into more of a split carry to role later on, but for the first few games he will be. So I like having that as options, like having starters who are actually gonna get the ball.
yeah, I think it's good. It starters with it's you know it's not upside for Singletary, but it's floor. So
Hmm.
something happens to one of your other running backs, you've got the starter there. I'm going to take another. I'm going to pass again. I'm not going to back up quarterback or tight end at this point, but I'm going to take the upside of the potential second year breakout with Seattle, Jackson Smith-Njigba. I'm going to play the option of, again, this is a bench spot. I don't need him to start week one. I can kind of see how this goes. But in the 10th round, I can see if there's a breakout, if he is the prospect that he was the prospect that was promised last year, I'm going to take it and see what happens. But because I've now got 3 running backs, I'm also going to look at, we talked about Tennessee. We talked about the split between Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. Pollard hasn't gone off the draft. Oh, no, Pollard went off 3 rounds ago. So I'm getting a little value here on a 1A, 1B with Tennessee. So I have 3 dart throws here by taking Spears on my RB2. That I could see what happens behind Bijan Robinson. So we see Njoku, Goddard, and Purdy go. So
For me, I think, for my bench spots, right, I've got 1 receiver, 1 running back. And I think for me, what I'm looking for is wide receiver 2s that I like. Looking for someone who can develop or step into a role if someone gets injured. And what I like is Jameson Williams with Detroit, having that wide receiver 2 role. Think that's going to fit in nicely with my team. Again, not looking for a starter, but looking for someone who can sit there and if they blow up like a Puka does, where people didn't really expect him to be a high producer, then I either trade value or I put him into my lineup.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Caleb Williams goes, Troy Benson, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff, Blake Corum, Dalton Schultz, Brian Robinson, Gus Edwards, T.J. Hawkinson, and Ezekiel Elliott. So, again, we're filling out our bench here. So, what are your thoughts here coming into the 12th?
Yeah, I think with Bo Nix being named quarterback, I think today or yesterday with Denver, he's looked good preseason. And Cortland Sutton, I think, finally has a quarterback he's giving the same page with. And so to me, wide receiver 1 on a team that historically hasn't been good the last few years. I like the upside. Right. I like the dart throw. And I like the depth location with the quarterback who can sling it around.
Like it. All right. We see Cole Kmet, Jaden Daniels, and Chris Brown. No, it's Chase Brown. I'm sorry. Chase Brown go off the board. So here, again, building out depth, I want to shoot for upside. We are in the 12th round. There is still Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence sitting here out on the board. I'm not typically one to say you need to, especially having a quarterback like Joe Burrow, you need to have some depth at quarterback. But I also want to see if there's some upside with either of these quarterbacks that may have backup value for Joe Burrow, or I don't have to rely on them. So if they have a slow start or they don't do so well, I'm okay holding on my bench. So I'm going to take Justin Herbert here in the 12th round, and I don't have to spend another spot on quarterback here for the rest of the draft, right?
I like that.
And looking here, you kind of go down again. I've got to go down pretty far to see what could I see, what's going to come back to me here. We've got 3 picks left. I'm probably not going to look at tight end. The only one that I would look at would maybe be a Pat Freiermuth. But again, I want to shoot for upside as much as I can. So if I'm looking at potential upside, I've got 4 running backs. I've got 5 wide receivers. I've kind of leveled out my playing here with what positions I have. But I'm going to take another wide receiver as upside. And Khalil Shakir's been getting talks in camp. He could be potentially Josh Allen's favorite target. So I'm going to take Shakir there. So.
Good pick. Yeah, so for me, I mean, what I'm looking for, I've got 3 picks left. I don't have a secondary quarterback. I don't have a secondary tight end, right? And I've got 6 receivers, 3 running backs. So to me, What I'm probably looking for here is a value pick at either quarterback or potentially tight end. For me, I'm realistically not going to move on from Mark Andrews. What I like is Aaron Rodgers here towards the end.
Right?
He could have a great year, and I think I'm going to pick him up just to kind of back up Josh Allen. I kind of have thoughts now about how this draft went, which I don't love my Josh Allen pick in the third round, but we'll talk about that here in a bit.
Okay.
Cool. So so now back around again. So I really have two picks left. I've got three running backs and I have one tight end. So my last two picks, I want a running back and I want a tight end. And so for me, I think what I'm trying to do is look at those two positions, right? Again, I think dart throw here is probably like a backup running back somewhere. So a Dodal, a Ty Chandler, Tyler Algier, one of those two. Just because Zeke's older, I'm going with Dodal just because he's younger, and I think that Zeke might take some of the snaps, but he's familiar with the offense, but he might take over midseason, right? Kind of more of a dart throw here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we see two more running backs go right after that. So we have Jalen Wright and Ty Chandler with then Josh Palmer going. So two of my last three picks. I'm really trying to then fill out, like I said, my bench here where we've got a lot of potential, but I I've got what, five receivers and
Mm-hmm.
five running backs. I really kind of balanced where if I'm going to take a upside throw, we talked about handcuffing. I understand if somebody takes Tyler Algier, but having Bijan Robinson in the first, it kind of limits
Mm-hmm.
my upside if I take a Tyler Algier here in this draft right here. So if I'm taking another player, I should look at a different offense, right? So if I sort
Mm-hmm.
by my running backs, right? I I think where I want to go, and let me go again. At this point in the draft, I don't fully believe that ADP matters. I'm going by players that I would
No.
want to
Yep.
take that I like. So ADP is kind of out the window for me. So I'm actually going to go Marshawn Lloyd, and I know he's battling something as far as an injury now, but I think it's coming back where he's gonna be just fine um, throughout the season. But again, this is my fifth running back, so I've got five running backs, five receivers, and so I'm pretty balanced here as far as my upside here. For a
Yep.
backup tight end, I could say I don't want to back up my tight end. Because if I am, I'm looking at rookie Ben Sinnott, Kate Otten. I think Isaiah Likely is pretty interesting um, in standalone value. But if anything would happen with Mark Andrews, he's pretty interesting. Or I could play the cheat code here if I really wanted to with the last pick in the round, take the all purpose quarterback tight end, Taysom Hill, and just have some fun with it and say,
True.
let's cause chaos.
Yep. Exactly. Oh man. Um, yeah. So for me, I am kind of again, like you mentioned, like the tight end situation, right? I'm starting Mark Andrews every single week. If he gets injured, I'm picking up someone off the waivers, right? Again, this is the last pick, so I don't think it really matters too much.
Yep.
But for me, like I'm looking for someone that is again just dart throw here. I do like Ben Sinnott, honestly, just because I think he has some of the like the Dalton Kincaid type of like it could be a situation right where he starts behind, like he's the protected starter, but Zach Ertz is there, and maybe they're competing with snaps, and he takes over the role, and especially with Jaden Daniels being named the starter, he might feel comfortable with more of a short, like a short distance target. So that's what I'm probably going to do.
And
Let's see how
especially
this
since
finish
you
out.
have, yeah, especially since you also have Mark Andrews here,
Mm,
um, that also then is kind of telling where you don't need a Sanat to play the first few weeks. So
yeah,
playing behind Zach Ertz, that's not a bad thing for the initial part of the
no,
season. Where if Ertz goes down or actually gets hurt, you have the tight end one that you can wait on. So I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
perfect like way to back up your tight end room
Mm-hmm.
where you have the stud where you don't need him. And if he doesn't do anything,
Mm-hmm.
by the time Andrews has his bye week, you can find somebody off the waiver wire if you need to. So, all right.
Yep. 100%.
All right. Our first mock draft here done, Grant. So you want to go through first your thoughts, kind of as you look
Sure.
at it, zero RB build. What do you like? What would you do different? What are your
Mm-hmm.
kind of takeaways of this draft here?
Yeah, I think for zero RB, it felt okay. I like the Aaron Jones, Najee Harris at round 6 and 7. Those are two, I think, starters that are going to get volume. And
Yeah,
the Jalen Warren situation is kind of like up in the air, but also got Singletary down there, who's also an RB1. So if Warren comes back and he takes over immediately, right? Then I have Singletary to kind of brace myself a little bit. I probably would have preferred to draft another like our borderline RB1, like a Jonathan Brooks, or honestly even a Zach Moss or Mostert or something. Probably. I think too. The way my draft was, I going for Josh Allen with number 3. I probably would have done Nico Collins, honestly,
right.
or Stephon Diggs, one of those two. And then I don't love the Puka pick in the second round just because I think that Cooper Cup's undervalued, and I think that what you got in the fourth round is probably going to be equivalent to my second round pick. But I like the Hill pick. I like the Pittman, Andrews, Jones, and Harris. And then for the bench spots, I think I did pretty good on my bench spots. But like the probably where I think I would probably redo my draft is Josh Allen. I probably wouldn't pay as much, especially with quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, that's like a 4-time NFL MVP there, coming off an Achilles injury. I think that there's a low risk, high reward there. So yeah, I probably overpay for Josh Allen. Like, yeah, he'll get you fantasy points, but I probably could have utilized another like a Brandon Ayuk or someone else there in that spot.
Yeah, so let's go back though. I think this you made an interesting comment where you didn't love the Puka Nakua pick, right? So
Yeah.
at the very top, at the very start, we mentioned it's not wise. It's good to go into every draft with a plan. It's not a smart thing not to go away from that as the draft falls to you. So if this was your draft, and you said, "Hey, I like the zero RB approach, and I'm drafting fifth overall, I really like this." The draft falls this way, where your choice is Nakua as your second pick, but you also see Kyron Williams and Derrick Henry there. Also Travis Etienne, I'll throw him out there since he went early
Mm-hmm.
third round.
Yep.
Are you potentially thinking I can go pick up a running back and then go back and get a wide receiver, and I'm still okay with a modified, I'm going to go the hero RB approach or something like that? Is that maybe something you would say you would do different had you not stuck to your zero RB approach?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think the first round, you generally have a pretty good idea where you are, if you're 1, you're 5, or you're 10, like who's going to fall to you, right? But I agree with you. Like if the previous teams had taken, you know, Puka and Devontae went before me, right? I probably would have picked Henry, honestly. It's about as sure a running back pick as you can. He's finished top 10, I think, 4 of the last 5 years for running backs, right? So to me, that's pretty guaranteed. But you're right. You kind of have to adjust and plan things differently. I mean, it could have easily turned into like, all right, I've got a hero RB and a hero running back or receiver. Then I kind of have to pivot my strategy a little bit, and then like, okay, I've got one good running back. I'm going to really hit like receiver hard because I'm pushing that back around, especially full point PPR, right? That's a big deal because
Right,
Derrick Henry, great running back. We've talked about it. He doesn't get a lot of receptions.
right,
So that in full point PPR, that's a factor to consider. So you're giving up a lot of those PPR points from receivers for that second pick, which is kind of plays a part into your strategy. And yeah, like you said, I think right here, this second round, 2.6, 2.7, 2.8 in that range, my strategy could have definitely changed right there if I
sure.
didn't get who I was felt good about in the moment.
Yeah. No, I just want to call that out of not loving your pick there.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
think sometimes drafters in this time we get to the clock's on, we gotta make a pick, and oh, I've said I'm doing this round or I'm doing this strategy, so I don't love this pick when I do that, and like, wait, hold on, where's the value in the other positions, right? So I think you
Mm-hmm.
point out great where it's like, had you taken a Derrick Henry, right? Nakua is probably not there, but you may have gotten an Ayuk on the way back or gotten your Collins instead of saying, well, I'm going to take Josh Allen in the third, right? Or your Stephon Diggs, where it's you still have very two top wide receivers and
Mm-hmm.
a running back on a good offense that yeah, there's a little bit of risk, but there's also a lot of upside with Henry. So it's more, I
Yep.
think these are the conversations that, as drafters are in their fantasy drafts of don't be tied to one potential strategy here. So, all right. Any other thoughts as you look at your board, see your draft, all of that?
Yeah, overall, I thought it did a decent job. What are your How about your draft? Like how being in the one spot had that feel? Did you like the turns that you got?
Yeah, the one to me is always interesting. I think you either really enjoy being on the front or the back end where you get two picks back to back, but you're kind of dictating how you're going to draft, right? So you're going in knowing I'm going to have two picks outside the first and the last. I'm going to have two picks back to back. And so I think it's easier to go into a draft with a set strategy of
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking these positions. So with my 101, obviously I went against what is, you look at any fantasy football rankings, you go ADP, Christian McCaffrey is pretty much the 101 across the board, or maybe it's CD Lamb. Um, but I'm going with the player that I thought had the best upside to still potentially finish as RB1 with Bijan Robinson. So where I like is being able to start with the player that I have a very high confidence in this year. Again, you could argue we don't know. It's supposedly a better situation than what they had last year with Arthur Smith as their coach. So
Mm.
I'm taking a huge chance, I think, or I would say I'm taking kind of a big chance with doubling up with Bijan and then Drake London, but I think it's a validated chance where had I
Mm.
not been tied to the hero running back approach, I may have gone ETN since he fell and said, I'll take Bijan, ETN, and then Chris Olave or Drake London, one of those two, and then push wide receiver a little bit further down, in the draft, not go quite so balanced in my approach. So I
Mm.
ended up, I feel like I ended up pretty balanced where I have obviously my anchor running back, but I have some upside with Javonte Williams or Zamir White, where White supposedly is going to get the bulk of the workload, we think. So that's great that I don't have to rely on him as my RB1, but I also have potential some upside with an RB2 with Javonte Williams of he may spend split time with Jaleel McLaughlin. But again, these are my RB2s. If something happens to Bijan, yeah, I'm kind of in trouble, but same as if team two, something happens to McCaffrey. So I feel
Mm.
fine about that. The only
Okay.
real upside I took was Marshawn Lloyd, but he is my fourth running back. So I've got three dart throws as my RB2s. But then I like the wide receiver one. The only one that may not be wide receiver
Mm.
one is my wide receiver three with Cooper Cup. But again, we kind of touched on
Yep.
that where that's value with even Puka Nakua. And then I also have Amari Cooper where if something is going on with the Browns that Watson's not the back, he's not back all the way still, they're kind of weird. Potentially, I have some upside with Jackson Smith and Jigba if he breaks out, or Khalil Shakir does really well playing with the Bills. So I feel good. This is
Good.
more of to me a process draft though, of how I did
Yeah.
it. So
Good. Yeah, I think overall, like I liked your picks. I liked you pushing tight end and quarterback down further, just based upon like preseason hype. You know, like Joe Burrow, like no one's like really hyped on the Bengals this year. I feel like they're kind of being
Right.
neglected, and I think that that's a great value play. Again, Herbert in the 12th round is just nutty. So
Yeah.
I think that both of those are great quarterbacks that you did really good on value wise. I think you did a fantastic job on that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's also one I think, what are your thoughts on backing up, especially when you have a top tier quarterback? Because we both have one. Obviously, Josh Allen, been a top level, top three, if not top quarterback for fantasy. But you have a top 10 quarterback. Do you see a need to always draft a backup quarterback for them?
No, I think no, because really like quarterbacks, especially the odds of them getting hurt are very low. So I think what you do is you draft more of a dart throw that is like, hey, this person has upside or potential, which you did with Herbert, right? Because everyone is like, hey, all of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams left, Eckler's gone, like all these players are gone from Herbert. His stock is super low. You grabbed him at a good value. And guess what? If he becomes top 8 quarterback, like you got Joe Burrow gets injured, something happens, boom, right there, you got the value. So I think like overall, if you have a elite quarterback, I think it's you don't need to, but I think for you, you kind of had like good, not great quarterback that you picked. I think. Who knows, right? We'll see how the season plays
Right.
out, but
Yep.
like you then spending like a 12th round value to back that up is a smart play. Like for me, Josh Allen, like I think he's gonna be, I mean, probably top 3 quarterback this year. So like I have Aaron Rodgers there just because it's like, all right, that's the dart throw, right? He's off the injury, he's 40 years old, like all these things. Um, so that's kind of my thought process is like that's the dart throw for me, whereas you kind of have more of like a realistic like Herbert's going to be good, Herbert's going to have volume, it's just a matter
Right.
of how effective he's going to be fantasy wise.
And realistically, you're looking at only needing Aaron Rodgers during Josh Allen's bye week. And
Yep,
if
you're right.
something happens to him or a different quarterback off the waiver wire ends up, being available, that's realistically what you're looking at as far as that type of build. So I like your build.
Yeah.
I think you did. You pushed running back far enough where I feel like you waited till the 6th round, but getting 2 starters with Jones and Harris um, really kind of solidified, you know, you didn't wait too
Mhm.
long where you're not taking Singletary as your RB1. So I like that build a lot too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. And I think I would change some things like you mentioned. I would probably have I probably wouldn't have paid the Josh Allen price. I'm okay with Andrews, and like I would have changed some things, but overall, it was I thought decent build. I thought decent draft.
yep. And again, it's kind of the importance of this is why we kind of do it where we don't know how the draft's going to go, but that's why understanding, oh, I selected this person where I may have done it later. So we kind of have that thought of
Mm.
get the feel where players are going. Obviously, a draft tip I would leave is as much as you can find out what your league mates may do. Feel them out, see what they're doing. Because I think if you're drafting in that 1 to 3, if I'm in that third row, if I'm in that third spot, and I watch what 1 and 2 are doing, I can kind of predict how they're going to draft and who I might be able to get on a way back around or who they
Hmm.
might go after to target before it gets to them. So, and again,
Yep.
also on like that 7, 8, 9, 8, 9, you kind of know, okay, what are these teams doing beforehand? So, where the fifth spot I think is hard is you letting the draft come to you. And that's where you were set on a strategy for our podcast tonight. So you were set on one strategy, but that's where it's okay, don't get set on that one strategy if you see the value.
Mm. Exactly. Yep.
So any
Cool.
any parting words? So we are this weekend's probably the second biggest weekend for drafters as we get 1 week closer to fantasy football season. We'll probably see the biggest weekend come Labor Day, but Any final thoughts as we words of wisdom for drafters this weekend?
Yeah, I think words of wisdom is one, don't be set on a strategy the entire time. It will change. Also, two, avoid homerism with certain teams. It's easy to look at a team and say, hey, I like this team. I like the players. You know, I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm a Ravens fan, whatever it is. And you kind of have that favoritism. And, you know, nothing wrong with that if the player comes around to you, but try, you know, avoid paying the Patrick Price, as we've talked about, when the first round on a home league for Wichita, right? That's kind of what you want to avoid.
That's good. You'll notice I have no Chiefs players in my draft, so that
Yeah,
is not.
same with me. I have no Chiefs players either. So yeah, no.
Yes, no, I think that's great. I would echo that. Don't be tied to a single strategy. Be ready for change
Mm-hmm.
and fill your bench with as much upside as you can. So,
Yep,
well, with
I
that,
agree.
Grant, this is a very good mock draft. Thanks for joining me around the redraft table for this tonight. So,
Yeah, a lot
we
of fun, and thanks for talking through. And I hope we gave our listeners and other people kind of more of a an inside scoop of like how we work, how things work with strategies and mock drafts.
yeah, absolutely. I think so. So, well, we will see everybody next week. It'll be the last preseason show before we kind of get into actual football games. So, with that, we'll
Perfect.
see everybody next week.